Real life.
Superpowers.
If you don't jump off the cliff, you as in the royal you, right? One. If one doesn't jump off the cliff, then you will never change, because comfort is really appealing and actually quite dangerous. And so what I felt in my personality is that if I get too comfortable, I'm not going to continue growing. And so someone like me, my personality, requires me to jump off the cliff and kind of figure it out later.
Welcome to Real Life Superpowers, where we speak with people shaping technology and culture about the real decisions, doubts, and instincts that shaped their journey. I'm Noah Eshed, here with my co-host Renan Menipaz. Today's guest is James Spiro. James spent over a decade as a journalist and editor, interviewing founders, investors, and operators across the Israeli and global tech ecosystem. Recently, he stepped outside traditional media to build the Spiro Circle, a selective platform for long-form conversations where he speaks with some of the most influential voices in tech. At its core, this is a conversation about trust, curiosity, and what becomes possible when you slow down enough to really listen. Let's dive in.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive!
Real life.
Superpowers.
James, welcome to Real Life Superpowers.
Hey,
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you've been going through a lot of really good professional changes and growth, and you're pretty much leading your own media venture. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
I do. Thank you. Yeah, it's been an interesting change and an interesting pivot that I didn't see myself doing so suddenly, but I knew that it was always naturally going to be something that I would embark on eventually. I was in journalism. Before journalism, I was actually in public relations. So I was in public relations for a few years where I was representing tech companies in Israel. And then I moved into the journalism side where I was reporting on those companies. And after about 5 years, while I was at CTech, I did about 1,800 stories. I did about 350 video interviews. We did conferences all over the world, in Tokyo and London and New York and Greece, Athens. And it felt like the right time to acknowledge that the media space was changing. And what I was noticing was that in this fragmented social media world that everyone is in, people are getting their news not necessarily from outlets or organizations which on an institutional level have had their trust completely diminished in recent years. But they were getting them from people, and they were getting their news and information from personal videos that they saw from people talking, or personal Substacks or blogs or other forms of new media. And that was something that really appealed to me. And so I left CTech. I felt that I had told every story I could tell, and there was a world out there that I was ready to explore. And the Spiro Circle came along a bit before that departure, because it was a way to tap into that new media space and a way to explore some of the avenues outside of tech that I was interested in. So there was an overlap for about, I would say, almost a year. I would say about 8 or 9 months. And now I'm all in, and it's just been a lot of fun. It's been speaking to people I wouldn't necessarily speak to, and I've been doing video recordings and studio recordings and writing about tech, of course, but also writing about Europe and America and culture and society and some of those broader topics. And it's been a lot of fun. I hope people are enjoying it.
It seems like they are. You were working in a tier 1 brand. Like, how do you get the courage to go all in on yourself?
Yeah, it's scary, right? And then you don't want to be affirmed by all the wrong people that'll be like, yeah, it's great, do it, and then you jump off the cliff, and then you see what happens. Now, I don't know how you got to feel that the time is right, and for me, I felt the time was right. I was coming off of quite a challenging, maybe 2 years in my personal life that I found very, very difficult, and in that time, I also became a father, and there was also the war that we all lived through. So there were a lot of shaky grounds around me for a long time, and it just felt that entering into a space that was on the surface as shaky, because you're independent, you're no longer being supported by a salary, but maybe it's different things that come along, different streams of income that aren't as reliable. And it just felt to me that I was in the right place to jump off the cliff. Now, if you don't jump off the cliff, you as in the royal you, right? If one doesn't jump off the cliff, then you will never change, because comfort is really appealing and actually quite dangerous. And so what I felt in my personality is that if I get too comfortable, I'm not going to continue growing. And so someone like me, my personality requires me to jump off the cliff and kind of figure it out later. It's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm doing this, which is exciting and it's fun. It's also scary, but scary is good because it lights a flame.
So I have this thing that I do with a lot of people, in a sense of talking about change. You're talking about your personality. I believe it's everybody, because I believe that change is difficult, but it's more difficult to stay the same. Meaning, at the end of the day, when someone is thinking of a new adventure, let's say he wants to open a new endeavor or change a job, then what happens is I usually tell them this: close your eyes and imagine you moving to the next job. Now, 50-50, it may be successful, it may not be. But now close your eyes the same way and say, stay the same for the next 10 years. How do you feel now? And usually what happens is the same thing. People think of change as something that's always something different. Okay, but not changing is the scariest thing. Staying the same, just no one as default thinks of that as a risk.
Yeah,
I mean?
and it's not even also changing as well, because change is a scary word. It's not even change. I would kind of actually go back and paraphrase, because it's not even change. It's developing and it's growing, and that's what's important, because you can grow and develop in everything without changing. Sometimes change requires the growth. And sometimes it doesn't. And in my case, I wanted to chase a big change, and I wanted to go all into something that I'd already had my feet in. So it wasn't like I went independent and had to build a logo and come up with a name and start from nothing. I mean, I had a growing subscriber list. I had social media accounts. I had a network. I had connections. And so it was a bit of a soft landing for me. But one of the things that inspired me was when I became a parent, and suddenly my wife and I had this baby to look after, and we had no idea what to do with this baby. And that was, for the first time in a long time, I was learning every day. I was learning what this kid would need. I was learning what I need. I was learning what my partner needs. I was learning how to put a car seat into a car, which the first time I tried to do it, I got into a fight with the Get driver because he started the meter, but it took me like 10 minutes to put the car seat in. So I was telling him to pause the meter, whereas now I kind of just throw it in. And what I found exciting was learning and growing in that aspect. And so that's a really attractive and addictive thing for me.
Right.
It's not for everyone. And so having that experience earlier this year gave me the confidence to do it in other ways. But you're right. I mean, it can take years to, they say some things, they say it happens slowly and then all at once. So I feel like that's kind of a lot of human behavior, is it slowly, and then very quickly.
Did you feel similar when you were in PR and then you wanted to explore journalism?
So before I was in PR, I was actually studying journalism. So my first job I ever wanted to be as an adult, kind of when I was, except for like stuntman or pop star or whatever, was Prime Minister of the UK. And then I thought, actually, that would be a terrible job. I would hate to be the Prime Minister. It's not suited for me. It's not suited for my kind of personality.
Did you say that like stuntman is not?
Oh, yeah.
Like, serious?
Yeah. So funny how things change.
that.
Yeah. Because in recent years, there's not much of a bigger joke profession than the UK Prime Minister. But anyway, so what I realized was that I wanted to actually not be the Prime Minister, but I wanted to interview the Prime Minister. And I wanted to speak to them. And so then I realized I wanted to be a journalist. So I studied journalism in school. And then it took me a while to settle into journalism because I crossed the picket fence the first time for PR. I love public relations. I have massive respect for people that do it. And I speak to them every day and I work very closely with them. It's a very specific muscle and it's a very specific skill set that I hugely respect and admire. It's just not one that I have. I'm someone who likes to interview people and write things and create the stories, and I'm not so inclined in the PR way. So I loved PR and I was working in it and it was very fun for me, but it wasn't where I felt like my skill set laid, which was speaking to people, finding stories, investigating, publishing, and then moving on, right? Because you find a story and then you move on to the next one.
So like each story is almost an adventure, but I'm thinking to myself, like, it sounds like being a good journalist is the essence of being a good PR person, isn't it?
They are all the same. Yeah, they are all. It's a really cool ecosystem in that media space because the PR people understand the journalists and the journalists understand the PR people. And it's this kind of song and dance that you have to navigate with each other because the journalists are going to annoy the PR people and the PR people are going to annoy the journalists, and there's a tension there. It's a bit like when you make a film and you have the director and the producer, and those are just two different people, and the producer needs the director and the director needs the producer, but maybe one of them's a bit more creatively inclined, one of them's a bit more commercially inclined. So there's a tension, but they respect each other and they get it. And I feel like it's the same way in PR and journalism. We're all part of the same media ecosystem, and that media ecosystem is changing outside of traditional media to new media and podcasts and blogs and independent publications. And so it's a really interesting space and fun space.
What's the biggest change that you see? Like when you say public relations and journalism, like what's the biggest change? Of course, it's like online and everything, but what's like the biggest change in opportunity right now there in that space?
So for me, it's been a few years since I've been in the PR space, so I don't know if strategies maybe have since changed and emphasis has maybe changed. For me, I would say one of the big new opportunities is this new media appearance. It's founders or CEOs or people who employ PR people who at first wanted to have their written quote in a story on a print newspaper, or they wanted their op-ed published online, or they wanted maybe to be interviewed on a TV channel. Now the emphasis is not to build a soundbite response for television, but it's to hone the skills to sit down and talk for 40 minutes, 50 minutes for a podcast like this. And I think that's where the new emphasis is going. And I hope, and I'm sure it's happening, and I've seen it happening because people approach the Spiro Circle, and that's how I get a lot of my guests through inbound leads, but that's a big emphasis in this media space now, is requiring people, and you see it not just in business, but you see it in politicians now. People who run for president are going to be expected to sit down and talk with someone for an hour, unfiltered and unedited. And this election cycle last year, the 2024 one, was probably the first time we saw that play out. But we're not going back to that. We're not going back to a world where the public expects things from people, and one of the things they expect is to sit down and talk the way that we're talking now.
That's so fascinating that's what you're pinpointing as the core difference, because I have this premise in my head that the world has become sort of like the Justin Bieber story, where once you needed the tier 1 publications, and then you could just become the medium and get the power through that and scale. And that with the internet, and the capabilities now of independent platforms, people are able to grow their voice and their share of, to establish their voice and then grow their share of voice, without actually having to rely on the old gatekeepers. So that's what I have in mind. I suppose it doesn't contradict what you're saying, but I never thought of it as a game of long form.
It is 100% long form, and actually, you're hitting the nail right on the head there, because these traditional institutions were the gatekeepers. And what would come along is social media would come along, and someone would say, "Hey, there's a story happening over here that no one's talking about. I'm going to write about it and I'm going to talk about it." And what we're seeing play out in America right now in Minnesota, with all the billions of dollars of fraud that was being funneled through nurseries or child centers. No one in the media is talking about it, but the fact that Elon Musk bought Twitter in 2022 and let the platform survive without voices being kicked off or filtered or refrained, news is no longer being restrained by gatekeepers. Now, there are problems in that, because people can speak incorrectly or they can spread lies. But then I'm a big believer in the power of reputation. So the fact that people are following the Spiro Circle means that I've spent years building my reputation, building my authority in topics. And I'm not entitled to an audience. I have to work for my audience, and I'm not going to patronize anyone, and I'm going to speak truthfully, and I'm going to be as honest as I can be. And if I lie or cheat to get my audience, then the only person who suffers is me, because my integrity is gone. So,
but is that true?
I hope so.
I mean, I hope so too. But then I'm thinking, hey, there's this whole dimension of deep fake that's only growing. And I don't mean that in the sense of somebody who's going to become James. I hope that doesn't, happen. That's complete identity theft. But I just mean in the sense that it's become very easy to lie, and to distribute a narrative at scale. And I think that, I know that the tier one, like the largest publications, also fall in so many traps. Much of the content is funded by forces of evil. But just the fact that, a lot of the content is funded is troubling. And then beyond that, I remember like over a decade ago, I read a book by Ryan Holiday. Perhaps you've read it. Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Yeah, I'm actually reading Ryan Holiday's latest book at the moment. That's my current read, his latest book.
Amazing. So I have to check what that actually is, but in Trust Me, I'm Lying, he talks about the concept of iterative journalism. He by the way was also a PR and who became he became a marketing manager at some stage.
American Apparel.
Exactly. So he was talking about the concept of iterative journalism, and he basically was saying you plant a fact, a quote unquote fact, at some low tier publication. And then you create a compounding effect where a higher tier publication quotes it. And then you can create a snowball that ends up at CNN because they quote that as facts and they have sources, but all the sources are just false. So in general, he claims that a lot of the news is actually based on that. And so I'm thinking among all this noise, people have such trouble actually knowing what's right, what's true, and what is fake. It's becoming more difficult. And perhaps that's also the opportunity when this is, when trust is placed in the hands of people with integrity. So, for example, when you step up, and you establish your own platform and you have your journalistic values with you, then, you're able to spread truth. But on the other hand, like even if you're the most, you have the most straight aligned values and your heart is in the right place, that's still, what's subjective. So everything there's so much noise out there, and the ability to actually establish a narrative that is truth is something that's almost undefinable.
That's also true. That's completely true. And it also runs the risk of tailoring your message or voice to the audience that you rely on. So if the way that all of this is being monetized is that and that's where we all went wrong, by the way. That's the whole thing. That's how it all went wrong. It's when everything went online and publications had to figure out how to make money from posting things online. So you had people being paid per story, which meant that they were just generating slop. Before it was AI slop, it was human slop in the form of gossip and drama and misinformation.
I think that was true before internet days.
Possibly, yeah. And then it was also paying for, and this is what a lot of subscriber-based publications, the trouble they fall into, which is when someone starts paying you monthly or annually for your content or your insights, you need to give them what they want. And so what you may run the risk of doing is putting yourself into a corner where you think, and this is what the New York Times has done, because they were one of the early outlets to monetize their subscription service online. I think it was like 90% of the New York Times readers online were left-leaning or Democrat-leaning, which meant that the coverage became that because they were giving the readers what they want, and it just added to this ecosystem, this ecosystem of echo chambers, pardon me. And I think that a lot of publications and people run the risk of doing that, because if I become niche in talking truth to power, and for those who can't see us right now, I'm actually putting my quote marks in my fingers, truth to power, quote unquote, then that's where that's where some of the sensationalized news comes from. That's where some of these conspiratorial podcasters can get elevated. And that's a whole different... That's as scary as you were mentioning with Ryan Holiday and planting the seed in the lower tier publications and building it up, because we're seeing that now. That strategy is the same, but we're just seeing it in LLMs because the data that LLMs rely on can be corrupted, and then LLMs are generating responses based on corrupt content that's being outputted to people that take it as fact. So problems are the same. The way that they are being presented is changing, and it's up to us to learn truth and authority in media and truth and accuracy in LLMs and deepfakes, and we have a big challenge ahead of us, but it's exciting.
Yeah, and there's also like other elements to this because, for example, the publications are now, in many senses, requiring the AI to pay in order to crawl them. There's an entire new model because a lot of the publications are saying we're investing in the content. This was also true, when Facebook and all those other platforms started growing, and they were also monetizing off the publishers. So now the LLMs are monetizing off the publishers, and now there's a huge discussion, and also it's starting to actually take place where OpenAI and Perplexity and all of those are now going to pay for scanning the publications. But there's also danger there, because now what will happen is that they will perhaps start crawling all these free sources. But are those sources validated? Are those actually sources that do tell the truth or not? Like the whole concept of truth and how people actually discover information is becoming very tricky.
Yeah, and I think we're going to figure it all out. I just think we're in this early era, this early age, and we're going to go quite wrong along the way. I mean, I saw some headline. It was, is social media the new big tobacco? Is big tech the new big tobacco? So, 60 years ago, doctors used to prescribe cigarettes to patients to relieve stress. And now, obviously, they don't. So maybe we'll look back in 10 years and think, I can't believe we allowed children under the age of 16 to be on social media. Now, we didn't know that at the time, but maybe our kids will say, how could you think this was, how could you think it was okay? And well, that was what it was at the time. So I think we are in an era of profound change. And I think Jonathan Haidt writes about this in a lot of his work with the anxious generation, and he records the effects that social media and news information has been has accelerated over recent years.
So what do you think, where do you think media is evolving to?
Well, I think precisely this. I think that the media space's reputation has collapsed because it's proven to be untrustworthy on an institutional level. So at the risk of sounding like a radical, the media space is, as I said at the start, it's turning into a place where it's becoming fragmented and it's becoming democratized, and individuals will be breaking stories by doing their reporting, and traditional media outlets won't be gatekeepers, and social media companies won't be gatekeepers, because there was a while where social media companies were the gatekeepers, and they were knocking people off their platforms for things that they didn't want shared. So I'm generally of the belief that more information is better, and that our responsibility lies in learning the good from the bad than having one news source that we have to believe.
But if there's like no gatekeepers, then how do we protect this from spiraling? Because I feel like it already has, you know?
No, but there are gatekeepers. There are gatekeepers. They're not, and like there are gatekeepers in the sense of reputation, and there are gatekeepers in the sense of consequence. Like it's not that. Like there's still a legality involved, and people can still be held accountable for lies they spread, or it's not a complete wild west. I think it maybe was a few years ago, but it is becoming a bit more. People are understanding it a bit more, and I think that phoenixes rise from ashes, like the free press is probably the greatest example, which is Barry Weiss feeling like she had to leave the New York Times because of the way that the institution was operating. She builds her own independent Substack. She builds an audience. She grows an audience that welcomes diversity of thought and diversity of opinion, and shares stories that of the time weren't considered very. I mean, they were considered taboo. And then it goes full circle, and that publication ends up being bought by Paramount because they want to restore credibility and trust in its organizations like CBS. So I'm a big like free market guy, and I kind of think that the free market of ideas is going to sort itself out in the way that the free market of consumer goods and products and services figure themselves out.
Yeah, tell me, so like. Can I? I'm going to change the line of question for a second. I'm interested in something. I'm listening to what you're talking about, and I want to know. Can you give me a day in your career, okay, that if that day was so successful and great, okay, and it would happen every day, okay, it would be the greatest career ever, or the biggest job in the world.
Wow.
Do you have like a moment like that? Can you give me it?
I suppose for me, there's the nature of my work is changing, so it's quite interesting because my output is changing, and so what I'm finding to be rewarding and what I'm finding to be quote unquote successful is changing. But at the moment, what I'm finding,
like I said, a specific moment. Give me a specific.
So for me, what I'm finding specifically rewarding is I don't post a 45-minute video of an interview on Instagram and say, check it out. I'll post it on YouTube or Spotify or Substack, and then I post similar, probably to what you guys are doing on Instagram, and different ways to snip it. So one of the clips that I did with an older gentleman from the UK, we were speaking about these very issues about government corruption and media bias. This was a UK focused episode, and that clip, I think it was seen a couple of 100,000 times. It got thousands of likes and shares and comments, and the conversations in the comment section. And I'm not a big Instagram guy anyway, but I mean, I didn't realize that people actually had conversations in the comment sections of Instagram Reels. And for days that's been going, because it sparked a conversation that isn't happening anywhere else. And that was just a snippet of the interview, and I'm finding that incredibly rewarding. And it's a testament to why I'm doing what I'm doing, which is I'm speaking to a guy, we're telling a story that isn't being told every day, and people are resonating with it. And so if I could have that every day, that moment where I just, okay, it's worth it. Like the mic problems are worth it. The exporting challenges are worth it, and the stresses of waking up and realizing that you've jumped off a cliff and you're your own boss and everything, like those normal anxieties, it all becomes worth it when you realize that you connect with the audience and they are getting value from what you're producing. And so if I could recreate that, and not in the form of a video, in the form of an essay or the form of speech, anything, right? And it's just a recognition that the work that you're doing is resonating so strongly.
And I totally get it. And that's amazing, by the way. Like, really, like, congratulations on that. I respect that totally. And when you were younger, like, okay, so when you grew up, like, let's say, like, what was your upbringings? Where'd you grow up?
Oh, how much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. No, I'm very, very boring. Very had a very normal upbringing. I grew up in England, in London, to two parents who loved each other, still love each other. They've been married almost 40 years. I'm very blessed in that sense. My dad's actually Israeli, so his family made Aliyah when he was 2 years old. So originally from South Africa, but grew up in Israel. They moved to England and had my brother and me, and we grew up in a very nice environment. I mean, my mum's the quintessential artist, and my dad is the quintessential kind of accountant, law guy. So they are complete opposites, but it completely works. And I was always encouraged to chase what was fun. Be good at it, of course, and to not just have fun, but to do what's fun. I think was important. And then when you chase the fun, your talents come out naturally.
Tell me, like, a meaningful, something that pops in your head, some meaningful story. Okay, like a day, a situation, or something that was meaningful for you in your childhood.
Gosh,
is there anything that pops out that, like, that was impactful for yourself?
Yeah, I suppose the big one for me was always that we would always go on the weekend. I mean, we lived in London, but we would always find these craft fairs on the outskirts of London in these smaller English villages. And they were typically an hour's drive, maybe 45 minutes, an hour. And we would get up in the morning on a Saturday or a Sunday, and we would drive just outside of London, and we'd go to these farmers markets or these craft fairs, and we'd meet people from different parts of the country, and we'd buy like a little like knick-knack, whatever, like a little thing that's at the market, and we'd have lunch in a local restaurant, and it was just, we'd spend time in the car. And maybe I'm remembering it a bit too fondly, because I'm sure my parents would be like, "Oh my God, those car journeys were so stressful.
For sure.
We were fighting all the time," but I don't remember. I certainly don't remember them that way. And my parents had a very big mentality of, school will teach you what the syllabus will teach you, but we will teach you travel, and we'll teach you people, and we'll show you different things. Now, that's a quality that I have carried with me, and it's something that in my career I'm super interested in people, and I like to learn things outside of the traditional boundaries, and that's something I want for my kid as well, to learn from people and things, and not just classrooms.
And wait, so, like, when you say impactful in that idea, let me see, like, so what was the feeling? So you're not talking about the drives, of course, because you're saying already maybe I made those drives too well, but you went into this carnival, and what about it? What kind of feeling that came out of the carnival itself? Like, what was the impact? Was it, of course, it was seeing stuff and it was buying the knickknacks, but was it, like, what did you feel like? You felt like, I don't know, some like sense of excitement? Was it curiosity? What was it?
It was exciting. It was, oh, cool, this is a new place, and it's somewhere I've never been before, and it's people that I am unfamiliar with and don't really know. And in England, it's really strange, because you can drive 30 minutes in any direction, and the local dialect is completely different, right? So, like, the south of England sounds completely different to the north of England, and north of London sounds different to south of London, and east and west, and whatever. So it really gives a sense that you can travel in England not very far. At least this was my understanding when I was younger, 30 years ago. So I think England's a bit different. I think people feel a bit differently now, but at least for me, it was super exciting that you could kind of go anywhere into different villages and speak to different people and learn the story behind their work and what they were producing. And I thought that was always quite fun. And then you go and you sit in a pub with a garden. Because in London, the pubs don't have gardens because you're in a city. So you go to these countryside pubs, and it was just a really fun thing. And then when we got a bit older, we would extend that to Europe, because now it sounds a bit crazy. But in Europe, in England, you could fly somewhere for, 100 shekels, £30.
Yeah.
You could get a flight somewhere. It was super, super easy and affordable. So then as we got older, we would start going to small European cities for travel breaks, 3-night breaks. And that was fun.
So at the end of the day, let's say this. Do you see a pattern here between your purpose? Because if you have to say, it's really hard looking at your purpose for life. But at the end of the day, you see those two moments, and somehow there's one moment when you're talking about your childhood. What I feel is that what you said is you're actually excited. You see new things, and you're actually, from your perspective, interviewing or seeing these other people. Okay. And then at the end, it's the output of your career where you see feedback that you actually took other people to that carnival, metaphorically, right? So when you put up that video, and then the feedback that you got, you're actually taking all your other kids, metaphorically, to the carnival and showing them, getting them into another perspective, with not a half an hour drive, but in a 10-second click.
That is really interesting, and I've never thought about it. And I'm really glad this podcast is audio only, because otherwise everyone would see me frowning and thinking and being and pulling all these faces as I'm processing what you were saying. I do think that, and that's that's an interesting similarity that you've drawn. But I would say that actually the important thing for me where I am is the opposite. And I think I think it's important in my career to share all those stories and meet all those people and continue that sense of wonder and excitement. But actually, as I'm getting older, I'm seeing the value and importance of actually the opposite, and of being anchored and of feet on the ground and being a support system for those around me. And so if my way of exploring is through my work, which I can do through Zoom or through travel or through driving around or, whatever, then that's one thing. But actually that sense of exploration right now is going to be restrained to my work, because I see other responsibilities and obligations, which are, building the home. And
no, of course, no, we were talking about.
No, I know. It's no, because you were talking when I was younger about the physical exploration, and it's I can continue that exploration in a mental
sitting
way.
down in the chair, of course.
Yeah, in a professional way, but the physical side of things are the opposite. But the professional aspect is maintained. That it's interesting. I need to think about that. I need to pray on that.
At the end of the day, we all, we had there's an impactful moment, in my feeling, that comes from a feeling. It doesn't come from an action, right? So that feeling that you had, it meant something that day for you, okay, actually means that if I feel the same way in my career, that I have an impact in the same kind of feeling. It's on the same kind of range of emotion. At the end of the day, that's how I resonate with purpose, because purpose is not something, it's not a destination. It's sort of like a reason to be or reason to feel. Some people you're attracted to it for no other reason. It magnetizes you to the same direction no matter what you do. You know what I mean? There's these people who magnetize to heal people or to feel something else, okay, or congratulated or liked or whatever, and it resonates with them. And usually it's about the same base. So you're making it the way you love it to do, because it's your purpose, of course. I'm not saying you do it in the same way. You do it better. You do it your way, and you're very successful at it. But it's still on the same base, in my opinion, which is great, fantastic. The great parents, by the way. Those are them.
Do you feel like you're carrying the follow the fun throughout your life, or were there points in your life where you felt like there was an answer that's more right, that you have to now make a decision because even though it's not fun, it's the right career choice and it's more, corporate or less creative or less you? Did you ever compromise on that front?
Yeah. So the chasing fun, obviously it's a pinch of salt, because if I was chasing fun, I'd be going to theme parks every day and going to the cinema at 11 a.m. and
not necessarily.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not. But for me, it's it was just in either things that I would chase or maybe an opportunity that comes my way through luck or anything else, hard work, does it excite me? And does it seem like I would be having fun in my day? Does it seem like I would wake up and be excited and enjoying it and having fun with it? Now, you don't enjoy every aspect of work. Of course you don't. And it's crazy to think that people can spend 100% of their time having fun and enjoying everything, because at the end of the day, you got to do there's a bunch of stuff that you're obligated to do. I just think back to things when I was younger, when I was studying for my exams, and I thought, well, I should do a language because everyone else is doing a language, and everyone that goes on to study medicine or law have studied a language, so I should do that. And I'm terrible at languages. I mean, I have an okay grasp of the English language, but I mean, that's the only one that I can muster. I mean, my Hebrew is terrible. My French, I did 8 years of it, is terrible. I don't have the ear for a language. Now, that was an opportunity. That was a time in my life where I did something because I thought it was the right thing to do, but it wasn't fun, and it didn't bring me success because I failed miserably. In fact, I think I got a D or an E in that exam at the end, and that's a whole other story about how my exam results were probably a bit lower than most others, which sidestepped my education a bit. But for me, I just find that people's best comes out when they're inspired and excited. And why not just chase the fun? Because, you know, Mr. Beast, I don't watch Mr. Beast, or I don't really follow him, but he did something he said stuck with me, which was the first 100 videos I did were of course going to be bad. Of course they were going to be bad, but every episode I got a little bit better at the thumbnail or the caption or the editing. And that's kind of what I feel like now with my podcast. I didn't do my podcast thinking it would be amazing. I didn't think it would be partnering with Forbes, and I didn't think I'd have an audience in as many countries that I have. And it's a huge blessing, but I did it because it was fun. And then that's what got me to stay at the computer and learn more about editing and outputs. And then you regret it, right? Then you regret the things that you regret maybe chasing the avenue that you thought was the right one. But actually, you're never going to know what you could have done. So just do the thing. People don't regret what they do. They regret what they don't do, I find.
That is so much in line with what we're saying at this podcast. A, we started this podcast almost 8 years ago for the same reasons. B, and that's something that's evident from all the entrepreneurs that we speak with. At the end of the day, you know, it's about going, you know, following your heart. And yeah, it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be just fun. But if it's not something, you know, that sparks excitement and then, I don't know, that dopamine, then you're sort of compromising on yourself. And, you know, we live one life. So if you're able to follow the fun, that actually also helps through the really dark aspects and the dark times that do, you know, happen within that journey. But, you know, just being able to sort of tap into your quote unquote genius zone and be able to be at your best performance, whatever that means, because you can only control what you can control, and that's pretty much yourself. So I think that's such an important message that I hope more and more people would actually apply to their lives and take that risk on themselves. Exactly like you're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage everyone to do it. It's because it's I don't know. It sounds so simple, and it sounds so kind of cheap, where it's like, just do the fun thing. It's not about that. It's like, you know, Scott Galloway says, don't follow your passion. If you want to make money, don't follow your passion. And it's like a buzzword, like slogan, kind of whatever. He says, don't follow your passion. Find something you're good at, and then hone that skill, and that's where the success will come. And then you can pursue a passion.
I think that's really sad.
Yeah, how he paints it is this, like,
it's a practical way to get to your passion anyways.
Even what we're saying right now, I mean, you know, I don't think anybody's here. I hope nobody's hearing this as, yeah, just go and follow the fun, because exactly like you said, it's like,
no. I'm sure that's definitely not the message.
The point is, it's so easy to get sucked into a grind. And those small but impactful questions to reflect on, such as what is fun for me, is something that as we grow up, we don't ask enough sometimes because there's so much should. And actually the magic typically happens when people are in tune with themselves and with what they actually are passionate about. So it's not something that people should, try to avoid because of should.
And it brings us back to the start of the conversation, which is why did you do what you did? Why did you jump off and do a change? It's like, well, I wanted to grow and change and develop. And when you're not doing any of those things, it can be quite dangerous mentally or emotionally. But also, I still am blessed with a family that was fully supportive in that, because it is not a safe thing to do, and it is quite a scary thing to do. But to have the support behind you as well as, and I'm sure a lot of founders that you have on this show have the same, that they have a supportive spouse who roots for them to quit their job and start their startup or whatever it is whatever their journey is.
It's one of the things that we hear all the time. And it's very consistent. You have to be optimistic. That's one, but you have to have a support system, like a network around you. Like, it's really true, like that no man is an island. And I think it's almost impossible to jump off a cliff alone.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's, especially as well, because the nature of my work can often be lonely. And people don't really think about it, but a lot of it is sitting and writing in a room on your own, or a lot of it is just editing an interview and you're sitting alone. Like, a small portion of my work is collaborative in that I speak to people, and that's great, and I learn a lot, but the work, the editing, the writing, the thinking, can be lonely. I mean, writers, often say they're lonely because they are in their own mind and they have to get that out. So any support system you have around you, whether it's a circle of friends or family or children or relatives, whatever it is, house of worship, whatever, community, is an important one.
But that's really an important point, though, because I think a lot of the people don't jump off the cliff because they don't have an immediate support system. The opposite. Many will tell them, you will fail, it's too dangerous. So then it becomes tricky but doable to find the people who will back you and surround yourself with those. And it doesn't even mean to walk away, I for one would never suggest to walk away from family or anything of the sort. Like, things don't have to be so dramatic, but a person that is able to find the supporting network that enables them to follow their dreams, I think family and any naysayers, they're typically speaking from their own anxiety and narrative. So if a person is able to focus on themselves and prove them wrong, and that's so scary in itself, right? Because what if I fail? Then it's even worse. But no, there is a tricky and delicate balance that people can strike in order to, give themselves a chance. And maybe it's also just like the regret fallacy matrix, where you just have to ask yourself, when I'm 80, will I regret not doing this or no? And sort of let things fall into place based on that. And knowing that, it's going to also be hard.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things that you've just said, because it's true. You're going to be hit with challenges along the way. And then there are going to be people that won't support what you do, or maybe don't understand what you do. I mean, I'm sure every founder of a company that has reinvented an industry had people along the way, whether it was their spouse or their friends or potential investors, saying, you know what, I just don't get it. It's not making sense. People are going to say that all the time. People are always going to face that way. And someone I used to know said something to me once that stuck with me, which was that jealousy is a gene. That it's like a character, it's like a personality trait that is like, it's like a gene. It's in you. It's either in you or it's not in you. And I don't want to end on that note because but what I kind of what I would want to kind of drive home on that is that people are going to not always understand why you do the thing you do, and people don't always have the wherewithal or courage or bravery to embark on scary new adventures. And I'm sure a lot of listeners on this podcast have done that or know someone who have done that. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. And one of the things that helped me do it was that I spoke to so many people in my time at CTech that had done that. So when I spoke to so many hundreds of founders or CEOs who had jumped off the cliff to pursue their dream or build something new, that all stayed in me. So when 5 years goes by, I'm thinking, well, if everyone I'm speaking to is doing this, why can't I do it? And so that's probably an exciting thing as well, because I don't want to credit my parents 100% for the work that I'm doing today. It's also the inspiring founders in Israel that I spoke to along the way.
And what would you say your superpower is?
What it is, or what I would want it to be?
What it is?
God, it's going to sound so lame. Storytelling. It's finding and discovering and telling stories.
And what would you say your weakness is?
None. No. My weakness is I can be a little too impatient, and the world requires patience from you, and I don't always have it in me to give the world what it needs from me. So that's something that I'm actively working on.
Well, you're building your own brand, so you obviously are.
Some days are better than others.
Of course. James, lots of luck. We're rooting for you. I love the Spiro Circle. I encourage people to follow you and read the Spiro Circle. Where can people actually, find you? What do you want to share some ways to look you up?
Definitely. Noah, Ronan, thank you so much for the time today. People who want to follow what I'm doing can go to thespirocircle.com, the Spiro, Spiro, circle, circle.com. And I am also on X, that's at James Spiro, and YouTube and Instagram, the Spiro Circle.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, if you have a moment, we would really appreciate it if you could rate and review our podcast on the platform you're listening to. This will help others find our show. And as always, if you know anyone who you think would enjoy our podcast, please share it with them. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back as usual on the 1st of the month.
Real life.
Superpowers.
Up in the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
It's alive.
Real life.
Superpowers.